on behalf of Mercent, I'm pleased to welcome you to our afternoon session, the new online advertising paradigm, Are You Listed? And I'm very pleased to welcome an esteemed panel of subject matter experts to the Mercent booth this afternoon. We have Brian Elliott, who is head of shopping platforms at Google, Brittany Thomas, vertical manager at Microsoft Bing, Jeff Gable, director of paid search, Linkshare Rakuten, and our own Anthony Guarino, who is director of shopping programs and performance at Mercent. So welcome everyone. Good afternoon. I know it's been a busy show for us all, and so I appreciate your time and participation. So we're talking today about product listing ads and product advertising platforms, the evolution of comparison shopping engines, and how product-specific ads are evolving in order to address a changing consumer experience and consumer expectations. And we're seeing a lot of innovation in the market this year, even in the last 12 months. And just notably, of course, Google Shopping, based on product listing ads, is now a pay-to-play program. I know we're going to hear from Brittany a little bit on an emerging program from Microsoft Bing, their own product ad unit. And then we'll hear some strategies and tactics from the entire panel on how you can leverage these various programs to drive incremental customer and order acquisition for your own retail business. I'm going to kick things off with first question. And Jeff, I'm going to start with you. Can you just talk a little bit about how you've seen comparison shopping engines evolve over time? These feed targets, what does it mean for me as an advertiser and as a consumer to see product listing ads sort of take the place of some of these traditional programs?
Sure. So my background is in paid search at Linkshare. I work on the paid search team, and we manage paid search campaigns for over 40 brands. But on top of that, we also manage comparison shopping engines, and we do Google Shopping and PLAs. And what I love from the paid search perspective is the transparency that we get when we work with AdWords and when we work with Bing. The transparency we get into what search queries are driving clicks, where those clicks are coming from. And when we work with CSEs, a lot of times the challenge is not having that transparency with the comparison shopping engines. So what we like with the Google Shopping is that they've taken this comparison shopping engine product and they've merged it with the Google AdWords to give us that transparency. So we can see what products are being driven by which queries. We can optimize better for that, and we can really drive better performance for our clients.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Google and Microsoft to sort of talk a little bit about the evolution of their own programs. So why don't we start, Brian, with you? I know you're a seasoned veteran of Google. You can talk about your extensive history with the company. But actually, talk about your role on the Google Shopping platforms team and kind of how you see these ad units evolving.
Sure. Eric's gently giving me grief because I've been with Google for all of 2 weeks at this point. The mission that we've got as a team for Google Shopping is to help improve the user experience. If you think about Google's mission overall, it's organizing information for users, making it useful, making it available. And it's really the useful and available information that really drove the change around PLAs. Consumers increasingly are time pressed, meaning they don't want to see a blue link, so they actually want more information in the right spot on the right page. They're visual, right? So a high quality image can tell somebody a lot about a product that's available for sale. And they're doing things across devices. So a big part of the impetus for us is how do we make good, high quality information available to users across any device, anywhere, so that it drives better quality leads back to the merchant on the back end. So kind of echoing what Jeff was saying, part of this is how do we have greater transparency about ad units, how they work, how we actually drive better quality leads back to the merchant. And if you think about what a product listing ad does, you've got in that ad unit an image, you've got information about the brand, about the merchant, about the price, about the availability of the product, sitting there in a very compact space that then results in a higher click-through rate from users, but also a higher conversion rate because the user has already gotten a lot of information through the ad unit itself. So from an advertiser perspective, PLAs are a really good additive solution on top of text ads. text ads are great for brand terms, category terms, general application. PLAs, product listing ads, are a great way to get the long tail advertised, to get a lot of product out there and in front of users and drive higher volume on that. So it's a nice additive mix between those two ad units.
So, Brittany, do you want to talk a little bit about Microsoft's perspective? I know that Bing is focused on a differentiated user experience in search, and I'm assuming you guys are focused on a differentiated advertiser experience in the shopping market as well.
Sure, absolutely. So the cat's out of the bag. We are currently beta testing product ads on Bing. So we're very excited about it. We're really excited about what we're seeing. We're working really closely with Mercent on this, so it's been great. From our perspective, and I know you've probably seen in the news lately, Microsoft is making a splash. We just launched Windows 8.1 the other day, and that's not it. I'm sure you've seen the Surface. I'm sure you've seen some of the advertising we've been doing, and really all of it is to go towards our new focus, right? And it's really about devices and services. And what we mean by that, when we translate that into the shopping paradigm, is how can we start really putting the story together that everybody's looking to tell across devices, and use services to help you guys when you are advertising across devices. So from a shopping perspective, we're really excited about the changes, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means on Bing in a bit.
Great, thanks. So before we move on, Anthony, I know we have a lot of information about how these various programs are performing. Obviously, the Bing Product Ads program is new to our clients, but can you just talk a little bit about this evolution from comparison shopping engine to product listing ad or product ad unit, and what we're observing in terms of merchant performance through our platform?
Sure. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so first I'd like to start kind of reiterating what Jeff said. It's all about data. It's about, we've seen tremendous growth out of PLA, and I think a lot of that's been driven by the fact that there's so much data now to work with about the ad unit. When we looked at Google Product Search, the free program that existed up until last year, you really didn't have much visibility into how your products were being served. Very minimal information was provided there. Now that the retailer and the marketer has access to search query data, data on impressions, data on overall clicks, they can bring that back into a system like we have here at Mercent and really be able to drive their overall Google Shopping campaign. So we've seen that a lot of growth of Google Shopping has been really by some savvy testing. The market is consistently changing. Strategy has changed consistently through the last year now since Google Shopping's existed, but it's really been about collecting as much data possible, understanding and leveraging that data for a retailer. From the traditional comparison shopping side of things, that's something I think we're still looking for. We're looking for the traditional partners in that space to really step up and provide access to similar types of data there as well. They've taken a little bit different model now. They're going a lot longer in terms of distribution. So you look at the traditional, what we used to call a CSE was a single .com portal, a shopzilla.com, a shopping.com. That model now has become a network model. You send a product feed to one of those partners, but your products are actually listed on hundreds of different sites. However, you have little visibility and little control about influencing the rank on an individual partner site. So I do think that the next phase we'd like to see, and I think where the CSEs or ad networks go there, is really taking a cue from Google and providing the marketer with more data and the understanding that we are used to from AdWords or what we get from the Bing ad side of things.
Yeah, so that brings up a really interesting distinction between how you optimize your search marketing campaign relative to these new product ad units. And we know in practice that there's a campaign optimization function that needs to be addressed, and there's also the product catalog data itself. So maybe Jeff, starting with you, can you just talk about some of the challenges and opportunities that this presents from the agency or advertiser perspective?
Yeah, definitely. So at Linkshare, we have an account manager who's tasked with doing paid search for each of our clients. And we found that the Google Shopping piece is its own different beast, even though having the paid search experience is great because it leverages a lot of that. It's very different because it is very data feed heavy. And you need an expert who's able to really dive in and be able to look at the feeds, give recommendations for best practices, be able to recommend tests to do with description lines, be able to recommend different types of category targeting to do, and those things are key. So really having different people looking at the different, paid search, looking at the different channels is really what's driving the success.
And I'll piggyback off that.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times the challenge comes when agencies, for example, there'll be different agencies that manage different pieces of the business, and there are different budgets associated with both of these things traditionally. So you've got a CSE budget and you've got a search budget. And now, since those are merging, I think there's a lot of confusion about where does the budget come from, how should we assess performance, what's driving performance. While it's great to have everything under one roof, and now you get the data and the insights and the information you need to make the best decision possible about your advertising dollars, sometimes what's frustrating is you've got now 2 agencies or 3 different agencies that are having to play nicely together, and we absolutely understand that.
And if I can jump right back in, well, one other thing that we've seen is that some of the search queries that drive the results for Google Shopping aren't being leveraged for paid search.
Yep.
And so it's a great opportunity to mine what's going on in PLAs and be able to add those into your search campaign. So I definitely agree with that, being able to leverage both of those together to drive more results through both.
Brian, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, just from an overall campaign perspective. Sure, thank you. We'll swap back and forth. I think from a campaign and a targeting perspective, the great thing about PLAs is you've got the ability to set product targets down to the SKU level or at classes or categories or families, which gives you a lot more control over how that happens. You can do query analysis to figure out what's working and what's not, and you can do that separately from your text ad buying and play those together simultaneously. Kind of piggybacking on what Jeff was saying earlier, data quality is really key though. If you think back to that description of that product unit ad, you've got a high quality image. The higher quality the image, the more qualified leads you're going to get, the better your click-through is going to get. But also data around price and availability is really key, meaning you're trying to lead people back to the website. If that price or that availability information is off, it skews your results. So it's one of the things that we continue to work with our advertisers on is how do you improve that and work with the agencies and the data feed specialists on improving.
So thanks so much. On this topic of data quality, it strikes us at Mercent that what has traditionally really been the strict domain of the marketer is really bleeding over into more of an operational discipline. That, of course, price and inventory availability and a lot of these back-end key retail variables or metrics are now sort of inherently connected with the ad campaign. Maybe, Anthony, you've got a few thoughts on just how retailers go about connecting their e-commerce infrastructure with these ad programs. What's different today versus 2 years ago? Sure. Is it speed? Is it breadth?
Yeah, I think it starts and it began with a lot of the changes last year that happened with Google Shopping. Now the fact that there is a paid model, I know this was one of the reasons that Google had put out there is about improving the quality of that data. Quality being not only how the data looks and what it says, but the accuracy of that data. And now that clicks cost something, the savvy marketer really that understands the fact that a wasted click is lost sales. If someone's clicking through on a product that they have from multiple individual retailers, they choose your offering there, but you don't have it available, you just wasted spend there, and you probably lost that customer. So, from a simple optimization standpoint, having high volume, rapid updates of product and inventory is critical on these types of programs. Integrate with APIs where possible. Platform like ours, we focused a lot from the product side of things, really making sure that our integration can support these for all of our clients. We had a background in marketplace at Mercent, which helped keep that type of integration, help us extend it into Google. We very much see this data as transactional, although ultimately the conversion or the checkout happens on your website. You have to treat your Google Shopping listings as transactional data. So simply posting a data feed, or we've talked to people that are doing data feeds in Excel. I think more and more we're going to see the challenge for those types of retailers and marketers is going to be insurmountable, and you will need to have a very highly transactional set of data.
Great. Okay, so final topic here before we open this up to audience questions. I think we'd be remiss in talking about product ads and the data that feeds them if we didn't talk about mobile and local shopping use cases. So I'll just kind of open it up to you guys. Brian, you want to start and talk a little bit
Sure.
about...
This is a big deal for us because back to the ubiquity topic, right? Which is we want to help users find that information anywhere, anytime, across any device. So a lot of this is how do you think about not only the product feeds that are coming in for your e-commerce store, but increasingly the local shopping data that you're giving us about in-store availability of product, in-store SKU count, in-store pricing, because we can then marry those two elements together and do today. So if you're shopping online and you're looking through Google on a device, you'll actually get a product card that'll show up. If you've got the local data married with it, that'll show you the store location, the store hours, the phone number. That works great if all that product data, to Anthony's point, is accurate and you're leading a customer into the store. If the feed and the data sets that we're getting are out of date or out of sync or based on an Excel spreadsheet, the person that walks in the store is going to be disappointed. So over time, this is going to continue to grow and evolve quite rapidly into ways in which we help drive even more traffic, not only to e-commerce web stores, but in-store itself, helping merchants basically grow their business offline and on simultaneously.
So I'm going to take a step away from product ads just for a second and talk about the experience. So when we think about showrooming or we think about people going into stores, what are you doing as a consumer now that's different from 5 years ago? You're going into a store, you're looking, you're touching, you're feeling, and then you're probably pulling out your mobile phone and saying, wonder if I can get it on Amazon, or wonder if I can get it on eBay. That happens, we know. So really it's about how are you creating a ubiquitous experience for the user, for the searcher, and then ultimately your customers. So it goes beyond, yes, there's a product ad and there's a product listing, but what is your email experience like? What is your affiliate marketing experience like? What are all the touch points that you're using to speak to your customers, and are you aware of how to tie everything together? Plug for Microsoft, we obviously are very interested in that right now and are working to try to help solve a little bit of that story.
Great. And just a final question here before we open it up to audience participation here. But Jeff, when you look at your customer base and you look at the offline conversion opportunities for your customers, for your omni-channel merchants, A, are they thinking about product ads in a local mobile use case, and B, are they prepared from a data standpoint to be able to enable any of that at this point?
Yeah, I think for a lot of retailers, the challenge is still marrying the offline with the online and really figuring out how to put those together. We see for many clients that clicks that come from mobile are about 40% of their total paid search clicks, which is huge when you're looking at people that are interested in where they're shopping from. So I think there's huge opportunity there. And I think the local PLAs, the product ads, is going to be huge. There was a study put out by Google the other week that said 84% of shoppers use their mobile device in store, and 53%, to your point, Brittany, are comparison shopping, which is huge. So I think it's going to be the savvy retailers and the ones that are willing to go out and be front of everybody else that are really going to be able to find success.
Anthony, any final comments there?
Yeah, and I just add that as marketers, the horizon of local data, in-store data represents a major challenge, really. Attribution now becomes almost impossible if possible at all, because we're looking at now multiple device attribution. Maybe places where you can't track orders. You're looking at not being able to track on a cookie because you have in-store purchases. I think that traditionally the performance marketing mold bends a bit there as we look at in-store and look at maybe separate metrics for value now. Maybe we're not looking at simple return on ad spend numbers, but what is the value of somebody that uses a store locator on your website, and bringing in traditional web analytics pieces and fundamental practices there that are probably more relevant to the in-store experience. What's the value of somebody that searches for a query in your competitor's store or near where a competitor has a store? trying to get down to the data that mobile presents us, but again, understanding that attribution might not be possible in a mobile device or a multi-screen shopping experience.
Great. Okay. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to questions. Danny, do you want to see if anyone in the audience has a question for any of our panelists?
Hi guys, very interesting panel. I'm Greg Tarr from Cross Pacific Capital out in Palo Alto. I invest in a lot of big data and commerce, and my question is related to how do I keep my data scientists out of trouble? When you guys are looking at combining different data sets, and whether it's for commerce activities or advertising activities, how far can we go? Because we have Washington, D.C., who doesn't necessarily understand what we all do for a living, and they overreact, and they don't understand PII. What's your philosophy in terms of dealing with data and making sure that people understand that we're doing anonymized, aggregated type marketing and so forth?
Anybody want to tackle that one first?
I think what you're going to find
stumped
is, you don't have the right panel, not our field of expertise. I will say, day one, hour 2 of training was how critical and important PII is as a company to Google. It's our reputation as well as a set of rules and regulations.
I'll echo that for Microsoft.
Maybe just a follow-on question. So there's the consumer perspective around this. There's also the advertiser perspective. And so, Anthony, I don't know if you have thoughts on kind of product data ownership or ownership of the data that populates these ad units. Or Jeff, if this has been a concern raised by your customers. Certainly we hear this with our marketplace clients, that when I syndicate my titles and descriptions and my structured bullet point descriptors of my SKUs, will they ultimately be used against us? And I know that channels, for their part, like Amazon, they require that photos that are submitted are not watermarked, that you contractually provide that you have rights to that information. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's, typically we've seen that Amazon is really driving that conversation for many retailers, just because Amazon has very strict controls around that. And frankly, a lot of retailers decide not to participate in Amazon strictly because of that data. And they want to maintain ownership of their product data. I'd say that it becomes increasingly more difficult now as we look at multiple devices and other experiences now where you have to give up some control for the sake of user experience. You're going to give up some control of that image because you need to scale the images or scale the experience or the content for the individual device the user's shopping on. So, I think it's another one of those mobile disruption or device disruption questions, because you have to give up some control as user experience changes. You're not going to be able to control the display of every product you have, because there's going to be different experiences that are expected by a user on different types of devices.
Yeah, and clearly there's a distinction between the platforms that you guys are operating and the largest marketplace in the market space today, Amazon, in terms of ownership over the customer. Any thoughts on kind of marketing flexibility or shopper ownership in terms of the programs?
I think the one thing that you'll find consistently, at least across our operations, is we're driving the traffic back to your web store. You're the retailer. You're the merchant of record. It's your customer. And so we're helping you build your business as opposed to building ours.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience?
Any other questions out here?
Okay, guys. Well, on behalf of Mercent, thank you again for your willingness to participate today. I think some very insightful comments on how the product listing ads and product ads market space is evolving. And hoping you guys can stick around for a few minutes to have some one-on-one conversations with our audience. Thank you again.
Thanks all.